The Jains were a sect of Buddhists who claimed they could fly. They could walk on water. They could understand all languages. It said they could turn junk metal into gold. They could heal cripples and cure the blind. Her eyes shut, Misty listens while the doctor tells her all this. She listens and paints. Before dawn, she gets up so Grace can tape her face. The tape comes off after sunset. Supposedly, the doctor's voice says, the Jains could raise the dead. They could do all this because they tortured themselves. They starved and lived without sex. This life of hardship and pain is what gave them their magic power. People call this idea asceticism, the doctor says. Him talking, Misty just draws. Misty works while he holds the paint she needs, the brushes and pencils. When she's done, he changes the page. He does what Tabby used to. The Jain Buddhists were famous throughout the kingdoms of the Middle East. In the courts of Syria and Egypt, Epirus and Macedonia, as early as 400 years before the birth of Christ, they worked their miracles. These miracles inspired the Essene Jews and early Christians. They astonished Alexander the Great. Dr. Touche, talking on and on, he says Christian martyrs were offshoots of the Jains. Every day, St. Catherine of Siena would whip herself 3 times. The first whipping was for her own sins. The second whipping was for the sins of the living. The third was for the sins of all dead people. Saint Simeon was canonized after he stood on a pillar, exposed to the elements, until he rotted alive. Misty says, this is done, and she waits for a new sheet of paper, a new canvas. You can hear the doctor lift the new picture. He says, marvelous, absolutely inspired. His voice fading as he carries it across the room. There's a scratching sound as he pencils a number on the back. The ocean outside, the waves hiss and burst. He sets the picture beside the door, then his doctor's voice comes back, close and loud, and he says, do you want paper again or a canvas? It doesn't matter. Canvas, Misty says. Misty hasn't seen one of her pictures since Tabby died. She says, where do you take them? Someplace safe, he says. Her period is almost a week late. From starvation. She doesn't need to pee on any pregnancy test sticks. Peter's done his job getting her here. And the doctor says, you can start. His hand closes around hers and pulls it forward to touch the rough, tight cloth already prepped with a coat of rabbit skin glue. The Jewish Essenes, he says, were originally a band of Persian anchorites that worshipped the sun. Anchorites. This is what they call the women sealed alive in the basements of cathedrals. Sealed in to give the building a soul. A crazy history of building contractors. Sealing whiskey and women and cats inside walls. Her husband included. You, Misty, trapped in her attic room. Her heavy cast keeping her here. The door kept locked from the outside. The doctor always ready with a syringe of something if she gets uppity. Oh, Misty could write a book about anchorites. The Essenes, Dr. Touche says, lived away from the regular world. They trained themselves by enduring sickness and torture. They abandoned their families and property. They suffered in the belief that immortal souls from heaven were baited to come down and take a physical form in order to have sex, drink, take drugs, overeat. Essenes taught the young Jesus Christ. They taught John the Baptist. They called themselves healers and performed all of Christ's miracles, curing the sick, reviving the dead, casting out demons, for centuries before Lazarus. The Jains turned water into wine centuries before the Essenes, who did it centuries before Jesus. You can repeat the same miracles over and over as long as no one remembers the last time. everybody will be there, the way they were for Harrow Wilmot's funeral. Dr. Touche embalming the body in his green-tiled examining room, with his steel accountant's desk and the fly-specked diplomas on the wall. Ashes to ashes, the baby in an urn. Leonardo's Mona Lisa is just 1,000,000 smears of paint. Michelangelo's David is just 1,000,000 hits with a hammer. We're all of us 1,000,000 bits, put together the right way. The tape tight over each eye, keeping her face relaxed. A mask. Misty says, "Has anyone gone to tell Peter?" Someone sighs. One long breath in, then out. And Grace says, "What would that accomplish?"